can combat security leaks according to the regulation set by the regulator, we encourage two-step authentication always. And apart from that, regular security audits are also done, wherein we set up a test environment with sample SIMs, and we try to identify the leaks in our network. So all these things combined, I mean, they go a long way for the customer to feel safe and to continue with this technology.
Because at the end, consumers are the one who is, getting affected with this.
Exactly.
And overall, if we really see the messaging business itself, I just read some reports last day before yesterday. It is 64 billion USD by 2028, which is big chunk. And if we don't secure or don't protect it from now itself, it's gonna be hampered for sure.
Yeah, and since Nayan mentioned the new kid on the block, flash calls, I mean, I was really surprised to learn that this year, in our own network in Europe and Africa, flash call already constitutes to about 4 to 8% of the total international traffic.
And it's increasing, right?
It's increasing, and the most worrying thing is that we're not monetizing it.
Right.
Either we stop it or we monetize it. We
It's a
can't just let
missed call,
it. We can't let it be a free
there's
rider.
no billing mechanism, so it's a missed call.
Exactly.
Yeah. So there has to be, first it has to be mitigated, or there is a way to monetize it.
Monetize it.
So that people stop doing this flash calling.
But have you been discussing the ways to monetize it, like a separate trunk, or
There are ways available, as you suggested, separate trunk to be created.
are there successful cases?
Not yet, not yet. So we at Telin, we have taken an initiative to create trust and transparency. So we have launched New Traffics. It's a public digital connectivity exchange, as I mentioned, for voice A2P virtual numbers. And it's one of its kind wherein the MNOs can go for software-defined interconnects. Within clicks, the interconnect is live. And we know that where the traffic is being routed to. Like Shikha mentioned, third party, where we don't know who's the end supplier. But here in the marketplace, the powerful market view, you can actually see who's the seller selling that particular route. Right. And we encourage buying from directs on the platform. And as you mentioned, there we are testing this feature, flash call billing. So not yet implemented, it's still in testing phase.
Good. So overall, what we discussed is about messaging security, what are the threats out there, how do we combat. So just to conclude on this panel, and thank you for sharing all the insights from various markets, domestic, international, India, Indonesia, I'll say, from Europe. So as Kunal mentioned, we really need to focus on the entire ecosystem. So ecosystem is consumed with, let's say, consumer, enterprise, operators, and regulators. So we should have all the checkpoints. Let's say from regulator side, there should be right regulations for the country and consortium to be made for this. From operator side, right security solutions to be implemented. From enterprise side, I believe they should also do something to protect their consumers, because they are the one who is paying for it, as well as they are the one whose consumer base is going to use it, right? And for the consumer perspective, it's the security and trust is very, very important. So we do have good panels coming in after this on authentication, on personal identity, and we'll learn from that most of the parts. And I think thanks to James for giving those. Okay, Alex, you would like to add something? Yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to point out that that's absolutely correct. And I think one of the problems we have to think of, that protecting the consumers from the operator side,
yes.
And this is the very right thing to do. And the regulators, I think they have all the doing the right steps to do that. But do you think when you implementing those regulations, you have to think on what is and how does it influence the global market and the global enterprises?
Correct.
Because it definitely, a lot of the local regulations, they make it much more complicated and just kills the A2P SMS.
Right.
And that's pushing them to look for more generic and easy to use channels. So we shouldn't forget about this, though of course protecting the consumers is the
Interest,
first thing
trust.
to do. Yeah.
Yes, all three. Good, I think that's
One last thing I would like to add, as the first question that you asked is how trusted are the various messaging channels. So we know that SMS has been one of the key, channels, wherein very basic handset can also support SMS, right?
right.
And the kind of power bestowed upon MNOs as they do KYC for the consumers, it is still considered to be one of the trusted channels. And with that, I would say it is very important for us to follow the best practices
Correct. So
in order
digital
to
KYC
protect
is
the
one of
revenue.
the thing
Yeah.
which will
And the mobile number which is being used, linked to the various OTT or business messaging apps, should be, taken under regulatory umbrella. Because as Shikha mentioned, there's no way to, track.
Yeah, because even if you have regulators, they can't really do anything about that.
correct. They can
Whatever
just
we are
put the
talking about
regulations
is only
out and
telecom operators.
correct, correct.
But what about the other channels, right?
Correct.
How do you regulate them? We are moving to a different channel because of reasons which may be commercial or regulation might be very difficult. But ultimately, you have to regulate them also. The largest, I think, education which is required if you're talking about flash calls and things like that, when you have an Android phone and you're blindly giving consent to them to read,
Right.
how does the flash call work? Because the consumer doesn't understand what he's doing.
Correct.
A lot of education is required on that stand also, because they should know what they're signing up for.
Correct.
If they are giving access to their phone book to read what call is coming, then what security is there? So if she's talking about financial fraud which happened due to flash call, that's
Right.
a very serious thing.
Yeah, serious
That
concern.
education
Correct.
is very, very important,
important.
to the user. And if the governments globally can do something about stopping this from an Android perspective, I think
Right.
that's something which needs to be looked into.
Correct. So I think we need more these kind of forums to educate others and market it and everything. So MEF, GSMA, as you mentioned already. So this will spread the awareness. We meet in various events. Instead of just discussing about the business, it's better to discuss about the challenges out there and how we can combat them. I think that's the major takeaway from this forum. So thank you so much to the all panelists, and thank you audience for listening to us. It was great, and we look forward to more such.
Pallavi, thank you very much. Now, before we have a ceremonial photo taken of all the speakers, has anybody got any questions or any comments about the topic? Rajiv?
Yeah, thanks, James. So, like being a techie, like we were discussing about the security, the anti-fraud, and then we were discussing about the artificial generation, and then we were discussing about the flash calls. So we discussed like we need to mitigate flash calls, we need to monetize flash calls. So there are different options that are available. So like, are we not thinking what is the reason that why those flash calls are coming up? What is like prompting the OTTs to get to those flash calls? Is it only the prices, or they are just looking for alternatives to those OTPs?
So I can answer that question. So it's pricing is one of the factors, which is very important for say, because the cost for a flash call is predominantly actually nothing, right? So they are blending the flash calls, and they're trying to create a price which is affordable and giving to the enterprise. But security aspect of a flash call is important, and how many of it's automatically, authenticated. But it works on only one kind of handset, which is the majority for countries like India, of course. But technology point of view, there is a need to be, a solution has to be there, but I think it's more from an education and a regulation perspective, because I think it's a privacy issue. So you're infringing on the privacy of the user. You're reading whatever is in the phone, which is very wrong.
And we've also got a question from Chris Almeida over here. Chris?
Partly a comment. Everything that was talked about today, I've heard this being talked about for the last 5 years. The new ones have been flash call and fake delivery, fake DLR, increasing prices. Why does fake happen? The MNO also enjoys it. The MNO also likes those bids to go from. He's very clear that if there are 10 million messages and somebody's bidding for 15 million, he's accepting it. So this is the whole ecosystem. I wonder who's to blame, who's the culprit. Is fraud by fraudsters? Are all players part of that fraud? But one point that was mentioned, and I'd like to really highlight, regulation is important. But 210 countries trying to do regulation, not in my lifetime. But I believe associations like MEF, like GSMA, can play a major education and advisory role. So this is the message, James. Over to you.
Chris, we're going to have to finish this panel very soon, but I would have to say that at MEF, we have the Business SMS Code of Conduct, which is a start. And I run the Fraud and Revenue Assurance Working Group. It's very similar in what it does to the GSMA FASG Fraud and Security Group. But we have this Business SMS Code of Conduct, which about just short of 50 MEF members have signed. Now we have 200 MEF members, and the majority of those are in the world of messaging. So my question out there is, why is it that so few MEF members have signed up to the Business SMS Code of Conduct? The code simply says that the signatory is doing all it can to protect the ecosystem. It doesn't guarantee they will never carry a spam message on their network, because after all, you are aggregating traffic from so many different players and people around the world. No company, it doesn't matter whether you're a GTS or Infobip or Cinch or PCCW Global or anyone in this room, no one can guarantee we will never carry a spam message or a fraudulent message. It's illogical to give that guarantee, the way the fraud situation is. But we have that collaborative platform at MEF. We have the Business SMS Code of Conduct, which is expression of collaboration and people getting together. And that is being reviewed because of things like A2P flash calling, which first came to our attention in October 2021. So flash calling is not new. It's something that's been around for quite a long time. I also happen to run the Commercial Models Working Group at MEF, and I can tell you the commercial models and